I want to say a couple things about fear tactics. I'm going to use this BP oil spill that occurred in the summer and spring of 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico as an example. I don't know if people are familiar with the stories, but supposedly the whole earth was going to be covered with oil and all the fish would die, and it was an Indian prophecy. And it possibly could have been if it was kept going and kept going, because they didn't seem like they had any way of stopping it. And of course, Dr. Dingle, I think his name Deagle, was out there talking about the tsunami that would cover the whole state of Florida, going 400 miles an hour, 100 feet high, and all this type of stuff, and then also a methane gas bomb or something. And as far as the gas story, I kind of bought into. I didn't buy into the tsunami too much, but I'm too high up to Florida anyway to get knocked over by that thing. But they have so many stories about this thing. But one thing I want to point out is Matt Simmons, who was talking a lot and giving a lot of truth and a lot of true criticism of BP. If anybody recalls, he died of a heart attack in August of 2010. Now, to me, hands down, and I'm not somebody who really gets into all the kinds of conspiracy theory, to me, hands down, he was murdered. That's what I say. That's my opinion. And I know there's a lot of stories about, God, they had some really crazy stories about the oil well spill with aliens and things that eat stuff that's metal, and I don't know what the heck was out there. There was a lot of crazy stories. But I don't think it's any kind of stretch of an imagination to say that Matt Simmons was killed. I know he's 67 years old and he had a heart attack, but I think that he was too critical of some very powerful people, and they shut him up. Now, I want to point out also, Matt Simmons was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's part of the elite too. So, when people are talking about the elite or the 1%, they don't know exactly what they're talking about. And I just want to point out something very simple about 1%. 1% means 1%, and actually it's not even a 1%, it's the 10th of 1% or the 100th of 1%. It's like one basis point. How about that? 1%. But when you're talking about these elite groups, there's always going to be an elite, because it's by definition, if they all disappeared, to be a different 1%. It's a definition. There always will be a 1%. That's what that word means. If they're the 1% of the wealthiest, or 10th of 1% of the wealthiest, there's always going to be that group, no matter what. Now, this guy, he was a good guy, obviously, in my opinion. And I think they shut him up for, because he was talking about the well too much. And there was 2 wells. Those documents can be pulled up. I had the documents. I have them someplace, but I looked at the actual documents, and I calculated, from my calculations, they were 325 meters away from each other and drilled within a few months. Matt Simmons was saying that the camera we were looking at was just a riser, and all the oil coming out of the riser was not anywhere near the amount of oil that must have been coming out into the Gulf, and there was like a gaping hole. Now, I'm leading up to something, because this is my theory. Not exactly too much of a theory, but some indications. Well, I'm going to cut right to the chase. When they pulled all the ships and stuff out of there, when in that area in a well, because there was a storm coming. I think it was a hurricane, and it turned out to be a tropical storm. When it came back, there was no oil spill anymore. It was done. It was because they said the water turned up just enough to mix it with the correxit, and you couldn't see it anymore, even though it was still in the water. But what really made me wonder was there was no more oil coming out. I mean, it was basically done. It was pretty much over with. So, I kept thinking about, well, Not that I have 100% faith in Lindsey Williams, because I think he's a little bit loony. But he was talking about that the only way they can really, they can't cap it. The only way they could do to stop it was with a bomb, and it had to be something like almost like a mini nuke. And I think Matt Simmons was saying that. There were some of the Russians that were coming, giving advice because they stopped some of these runaway wells, but they were on land with a mini nuke. I almost tend to think that's what they used to stop the well. It was like when all the ships were out of there. Now you wouldn't hear this thing because unless you had some sensitive instruments, because it was so far down. But I tend to think that's how the well was stopped. But if they told the public that they're going to use a mini nuke on this well, can you imagine the stories that would have went out there? They would have scared the crap out of everybody, and it would have started a major commotion, and there would have been probably a revolt for all I know, So in a lot of cases, I mean, the elite are doing a lot of nasty things. Like with this well, I'd almost tend to think it was deliberate, because Goldman Sachs, as everybody maybe does or doesn't know, they made financial bets beforehand. It was like having it makes you think they knew something. And of course, the BP CEO selling the stocks, it makes you think they knew something. And part of the reason might have been push the cap and trade agenda. There was some kind of slip up by somebody alluding to that fact. But as far as some of the crazy conspiracy theories out there, this BP oil spill was a very good case for them, and there is a lot of fear tactics out there left and right on everything. So everybody was saying this was the end of the world. This was the end of the world, and I want to point out that everything that comes up, like if there's a war with Iran, I mean, I can almost think back to this BP oil spill, and it didn't turn out as bad as people think. And it's not going to be a war with Iran or whatever the hell comes up. It's going to be strike on Iran in certain specific key areas. That's probably going to happen. It's not going to be some all-out war. That's not what's intended. But what I'm pointing out is back in 2010, look how much publicity this thing got with the oil spill. It was very bad, but look how overblown it got. Look how many conspiracy stories came out that were totally wacky. I mean, Alex Jones was talking about this thing left and right, and it was like they were deliberately trying to depopulate everybody in the whole area. That's what people were trying to say. They were trying to destroy the whole United States of America. I don't think the elite are trying to do that. That is getting a little too far out there. The elite have a power base, so as screwed up as they can be, it's like they don't want to destroy their power base. And that's just how it's been all along. And if you could take an example like Matt Simmons, he was an elitist too. Does that mean he was a bad guy? No, it doesn't mean he's a bad guy. So I mean, what I'm really pointing out is that a lot of stuff with these conspiracy channels, and I do not disagree with them all the way, but they seem to be in the conspiracy business. David Icke, the Coast to Coast show, Alex Jones, and that if they were telling the truth all the time, I think they would have wound up like Matt Simmons. I think that guy was flat out telling the truth, and when somebody tells the truth a lot, pisses off the elite for real, they wind up dead. So I'm very, very suspicious of a lot of the alternative media. So just what I'm saying here, though, is that these fear tactics they're using all the time, I think they work, because I could see a lot of people are like getting into some really wacky theories, and I don't buy into all that stuff.